You know, when I think about it, I do actually understand why to some people sometimes I come across as overly negative or nitpicky. When I looked back at the first impression video of For Honor that I did yesterday, I do have to agree it did come across as more nitpicky than I actually intended, because I was focusing more on the negative things at the time, or at least what I personally found more negative, which is a personal quirk of mine. I tend to be more mindful of the negative things than the positive. So yeah, I freely admit that. So I'll give it another try to give you a more nuanced impression of my opinion, and more complete, if you will. So, as said, the gameplay overall so far as I can tell, as said, I haven't played it a whole lot yet. I'm still a noob. So the gameplay is overall definitely solid. I mean, no doubt about it. As far as the realism is concerned, as said, the game does not claim to be historical or realistic. I think I actually got a bit of a different impression, because if you remember, the very first video I did about For Honor was actually based on the first trailer, and that one seemed to be more focused on making it realistic and you know, having certain degree of historical accuracy in there. I mean, alternate history, of course, but you know, I had kind of a different vibe from it. Whereas the way it is now, it's clearly, you know, inspired by history, but it is really mainly fantasy. However, I do have to say, in general, the moves are certainly more realistic and convincing than many games. I mean, some of them are just deliberately over the top to be satisfying. I mean, the way he impales people and throws them over his head, it's deliberately over the top. It's intended to make you feel like a total badass for just tearing through these, you know, no-name soldiers, just the random guys, because you're the hero, right? So it makes certain sense, and it's somewhat confusing to me in a certain way that some of the stuff you see here is actually pretty realistic and you know, plausible, and some of the other stuff is absolutely not. And I think it's this combination that threw me off a little bit. So just like the raider with his axe, one thing I very much appreciate here is the attention to detail. If you look, you know, when I switch from the right guard to the high guard, and then from the left guard to the high guard, you'll see that it's actually on different sides, which is very interesting. You don't usually see that level of detail. Also, if you look when switching from the left to the right guard, he actually switches hands, which is what you would do with a pole arm. Because if you tried, you know, to have it on the same side and still have the right hand or the main hand above the other one, if you then try to strike to your right side, you would have a problem with the long handle hitting your body and getting in the way. So that's something that I've noticed immediately with both the raider and this guy. So it's very interesting that they paid attention to that sort of thing. As said, I'm still a total noob at the game, and my impression may also change as I play more and get better and all of that. And also, one thing I want to say about the animations, well, not just animations, but also the sound effects, which is related to realism, but not exclusive. Namely, that all the hits feel like they have a lot of impact. So this one here is also pretty neat, because he switches, you know, between strikes with the butt of the shaft and the head of the weapon, and then of course that massive strike at the end is very satisfying. So the nice thing about the animation and sound assets here is that they seem to have some weight, if you know what I mean. So both the way the strikes look, how they're animated, they're not floaty the way it is in some games. And together with the sound effects, you have this feeling of, okay, that's some real impact right there. They're not fucking around, to put it like that. And that is... Ooh, hi. That is quite satisfying. Oh! But how many of you are there? Like, seriously? There we go. And this one is really nice. The way he hooks the leg and then thrusts with the pole arm when the opponent is down. That is exactly what you could do with a pole arm like that. So that is definitely a very authentic maneuver right there, which is nice to see. This is the kind of thing that I mean. It adds immersion, because if it looks like something that could be pulled off in order to defeat an opponent, it's just more satisfying than some random floaty jumping, twirling, and, you know, stuff like that. And as said, it's mainly just the more agility-based characters that do that anyway. The others do have, you know, generally quite reasonable movements. So it is worth pointing out. And that's really all I'm asking for, generally. You know, have something that looks like it makes sense. It shows that they bothered, basically. You know, they put the effort into researching it, which is nice. You know, you gotta give developers credit for actually doing the extra research to make everything look more convincing or real, if you will. So, you know, that's nice, but it's not the required default, so to speak. And I still gotta learn to not roll so much, because this is not Dark Souls. Here it's definitely better to parry instead of roll. But yeah, so the attention to detail is really nice. You know, the way I may not personally be a fan of the character design, especially of the Vikings, because the Warlord isn't so bad, but the Raider with the bones and all this weird stuff is a little on the silly side for me. But either way, it's very detailed outfits, and it looks nice. I mean, graphically, definitely pretty impressive, no doubt about it. And the animations are smooth, fluid. Oh, come on. Yeah, I still suck at this, as said. Total noob. By the way, yes, my camera battery has indeed died again. I know, it must seem crazy to you. Why does he constantly run out of battery when recording? But the problem is that 3 out of 4 batteries I have for this camera have substantially lost capacity over time. So it's, I don't know, the batteries are just kind of cheap, but they're rechargeable, but they keep losing capacity over time, and it's just at this point they last for, I don't know, a bit more than half an hour. And with the outtakes that I have, because I'm, you know, I lose my train of thought, or, you know, I didn't like what I said at the time and just redid it to not derp as much, it drains pretty quickly. Anyway, that just as a side note. So the other nice thing is that there is a story mode. So it's not just delivered as a multiplayer game only. And it does make a difference. The story mode plays substantially different than the other modes. And it's kind of neat that they all have their own languages. The Knights speak Latin, the Vikings speak Icelandic, which is very appropriate because Icelandic is very similar to Old Norse, which is what the Vikings spoke at the time. A modern Icelandic person and a Viking of that time would actually be able to communicate. The language has changed a bit, but not so drastically that they wouldn't understand each other anymore. So that's pretty pretty cool, actually. But then again, of course, they are not real Vikings, or at least not real world Vikings, so it doesn't really matter. Anyway, so yeah, let's leave it at this for right now. So I just want to make this to give you a better idea of my impression so far. There are plenty of things to like about the game, and at first I was just nitpicking, so figured why not make a bit of an update. Yeah, that is a completely historically accurate technique. Leaping from a rock and just crashing into the enemy. Anyway, thanks for watching.